of the required hours. Okay. There's the OSHA standard 29 CFR 1910, which is general industry, subpart S, which covers 300 to 399. And this thing here is the website for that. I haven't had much luck. I get it to come up on this one, but I can't get it to come up on this one or that one. So trust me, it's right here. So Jeremy, how do I do that?
What are you trying to do?
I want to move this guy.
Oh, that's how you do it.
Hey.
Look at that computer whiz.
All right. Subpart S, it's a pretty big subpart, but a lot of them are reserved. That means that they're planning on putting stuff there, they just don't have it there yet. So you have introduction, general, blah blah, wiring, hazardous locations, special systems, you go way down. So just don't look at this and say, well, there's nothing else after that, because it keeps going. Selection and use of work practices, use of equipment, safeguards, PPE, for personal protection, and definitions. So there's a whole lot more than just that first part. So you have to pick what applies to it. So if you pick wiring methods, components, and equipment for general use, you come up with several of these guys, and I'm just giving you some examples of them. Wiring methods. General requirements, here's what it talks about: raceways, cable trays, cable armor, cable sheath, enclosures, blah, blah, blah. Stuff you've all seen downstairs, right, down in our lab. So there's OSHA standards concerning that, okay? Temporary wiring, there's an OSHA standard for temporary wiring, okay? And this gives several of them. Temporary electrical power and lighting installations at 600 volts, maybe only be used as follows, okay? So it gives you time frames and locations where they can be used. So it's got a lot of good info in there. If you ever get into where you're doing some wiring, you want to make sure you meet OSHA standards. Go ahead and give it a look here. We'll see if I can get out of this. Close tabs. What two tabs am I closing? Oh, I see. I see. Cancel. I don't want to. How do I get this? I just want it to go. I didn't hit the subtract sign to get it over. All right. Review of the OSHA standard. This is just the handout that I gave you has a little bit more information than's on here. I didn't want to print it all down, but this covers for the quiz. I did some checking actually. All these quizzes, the chapter quizzes, you're supposed to get 100% on, and then 80%. Now, I'll take into account that there was some crappy quizzes because some of the questions I didn't pay that much attention to, and when I changed them, they didn't come out right. So those all get, everybody passes those questions. But now you have these kinds. So there's no poor questions now. They're all cut. The answers I cut and paste out of this handout. Pay attention. Electricity is accepted as a source of power without much thought to the hazards encountered. Everybody goes home, plugs in their curling iron, or I look at Mary and I say curling iron. I was honestly thinking toaster. I looked at Mary and said curling iron.
That's about it too. So,
actually, there's a really cool song by Hayward Banks called Toast. I'll play it for you. He uses actually a toaster as his instrument. It's pretty good. Some employees, I was seriously thinking toaster, and I looked at Mary and said, hey. All right, some employees work with electricity directly. Engineers, electricians, electronic technicians, and power line workers. Office workers and sales work with it indirectly. So if you're plugging something in, you're an indirect user. If you're actually working on the systems, you're a direct user. Okay? Okay, the standards address, why don't I just read it here, it's easy on me. Okay, the standards address the serious workplace hazard which exposes employees to such dangers as shock, electrocution, fires, and explosions. The objectives of the standard is to minimize the potential hazard by specifying design characteristics of safety and use of electrical equipment. Here's the learning objectives that I kind of got a couple, and anyway, I've got the answers. What I would suggest are the answers to these learning objectives on your handout. Okay, so if you look at the first one, describe before, I think I covered them in, I think I put them in here too. Yeah, learning objective 1. 4 types of injuries. If it's a learning objective, you probably ought to know it for some kind of test too. 4 types of injuries that may result from contact with electricity. Electrocution is death due to electrical shock. Electrical shock, obviously, that's where you get zapped. Burns. Burns are the most common non-fatal injury when it comes to dealing with electrical. And then falls. Falls are when you just get this little pop, but you lose your concentration. Okay? You lose your concentration, fall off a ladder, fall off a scaffold or a platform, something like that. The other thing to go along with that is dropping stuff. Somebody might be working below you. You get tapped on it, just a minor tingle, but it causes you to let go and you drop stuff. So that's how I would answer learning objective 1. Learning objective 2, list the 3 main electrical hazards that may be encountered at a work site. These are the 3 main hazards: inadequate wiring, improper grounding, and overloads. What do you think inadequate wiring is? We're going to talk about this later on, but I want to see this.
Bare wiring only.
That's like using 18 gauge and you need 10. Okay? You didn't go to your uglies or your standards or whatever, see what your current load on the system is, whatever else you have to figure out, and use the proper wire. Improper grounding, that's mainly where you just don't have it grounded correctly, right? Everybody knows that everything's supposed to be grounded through ground, through electrical connection to earth ground, right? Through the ground in your system to earth ground. So that's a big one. It's getting better because the inspection, the guys who inspect it are getting so much better at knowing what to look for.
Kind of like pulling a bucket with no ground plug on it?
Yeah. Overloads. That's talking about, you guys have all seen, in my office, where you plug an extension cord into an outlet and it's got 3. You load that up, and then you take the extension cord off of that and you load that up. Or you see these big ugly pictures with 18 different cords going into something, like you're on your Christmas tree. Christmas lights are about it. Okay, so that's kind of what overloads are. 3 methods of protection from electrical hazards. Overload protection here, this is tripping something if you have too much current. Making sure you have ground. Making sure you're doing inspection. Making sure you guard everything. Use the correct grounding, and training. Okay, so those are the methods that you can use to protect from electrical hazards.